Now, before I begin this video essay, make sure that you are subscribed to my channel. There's a lot of people who have mysteriously found themselves unsubscribed because YouTube is doing that as a means to try to hobble the black media and try to slow down our progress. They will fail. If you're not already subscribed, you need to go ahead and hit the subscription button. The exact same kind of fire you've been hearing me spit for the last few days. We do this on a very frequent basis. And you should also drop by my Twitter page as well. You get more heat there. The black media is your voice. You need to be listening. Hit the subscribe button so that you don't miss any of this black truth. Now, that said, for the last few days, Gayle Skank has been dragged all across the internet by the black media and just by black internet users in general, and rightly so. And you can tell that whomever her white handlers are at CBS, some pasty white person gave her the talking point. Go ahead and blame it on the network. Just say there was a network. It was an editing thing. Don't mention any names. Don't blame anyone. Don't be specific. Just say it was an editing thing and I wish it had been done differently. Blah, 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 blah. And that'll get the heat off of you. Well, that didn't work. So, talk about the wrong tool for the wrong job. In comes Oprah Winfrey, the beached land whale, decided that she would go on NBC of all places. She couldn't even make her way to CBS. She decided she would go on NBC and say, "Oh, my friend Gayle, she's not okay. She's not okay." Well, do you think that the family of Kobe Bryant and his dead daughter are okay? Oprah, by the way, didn't have one syllable of sympathy or concern for the family of Kobe Bryant and his dead daughter. Oprah didn't have anything to say about them, and neither did Gayle Skank. And neither did the good white folks over at CBS. Nobody said one word of condolence or concern about the family of Kobe Bryant, saying, you know what, this is just putting them through more psychological trauma. This is traumatizing a family who has already been traumatized enough. We were wrong. Instead, it's, well, if you didn't understand it, that's your problem. See, as the black media has turned up the heat on white supremacy and its bootlicks and its operatives and its apparatchiks, what's happening is people are being forced to declare where they stand. They're being forced to show where they've always stood. And you got Oprah, who came out of hiding so that she could try to get some phony baloney sympathy for Gayle Skank, and she sees it didn't work. They're just throwing stuff at the wall now just to see if anything sticks, and nothing's sticking. It isn't working. Now, the question is, why was it that at this moment you got Gayle Skank pulling a stunt like this? As I explained to you before, and it needs to be reiterated here, this is part of an ongoing aggressive strategy by the white media, because as attention is turned to sexual harassment, everyone's making an issue out of the fact that you got men, white men, who hold mainly women, hold their jobs over their heads to coerce them into unwanted, non-consensual sexual activity. And these are the ones who have been committing the most crimes. They are the face of sexual harassment and sexual assault in America. And they're also the ones who control the media. They're the ones who decide what goes on air and what doesn't go on air. These are the guys who are behind this. These are the guys who are pushing this. They and their successors and their associates. That's why CBS did this. This is why all the white media has decided that we're only going to focus on the black guys. Look at who the hell it is who runs it. These are the ones who hold people's jobs over their heads. The stories ought to be about them, just a nonstop litany, but it's a matter of now we get to decide what will be reported on. Well, you got to give it to the perverts. They definitely chose the right line of work to insulate themselves, now didn't they? But what they didn't count on is that there would also be a hyper-aggressive black media out here talking to the grassroots. You see, there's one of two ways to reach the public. Either you have some propaganda mill broadcasting from the top down, or you have a bunch of little satellites at ground level talking to the grassroots. And we see which one has carried the day now, don't we? And what these guys are scared of is if this kind of talk continues, it's not going to be merely a matter of keep the attention off of the white CEOs and white network executives who have been raping and sexually harassing women. Instead, let's get on the black guys. It's going to soon transition from that to, gee, why hasn't Les Moonves been indicted? Why is it that this Chris Albrecht over at Stars, why is this man still on the loose? Wait a minute here. Did you hear how many women say that Charlie Rose violated them? Why the heck is this guy not in handcuffs? Or at the very least, why is he not the face of sexual assault in America? Why in the world are we talking about Kobe Bryant and something that was disproven, categorically, demonstrably disproven? They don't want those questions coming up. They don't want people talking like that, so they are using their media, their platform, and they're using clowns and tools like Gayle Skank to keep up a steady daily drumbeat. But now they're getting serious pushback. See, it used to be a matter of people either didn't push back, or if they did, it wasn't strong enough to be heard. We hadn't reached a critical mass. So it was a matter of, well, there's some people who aren't taking the bait. There's some people who aren't drinking the Kool-Aid, but there's not enough of them to matter. Well, there's enough of them now. Because you see, what happens is the black media talks to this person, and this person talks to another person. Next thing you know, you got people who are actually in the circles. You know, some of the associates and hangers on and such. People like a Snoop Dogg or a 50 Cent, they may be way above the black media, allegedly. They may not admit to listening to us, though many of them actually do. They just don't admit it. But what happens is their associates, people lower on the food chain, people lower down the ladder, they certainly listen to us. They certainly got the time and the inclination to listen to us. So what happens is we don't have to talk directly to these higher level celebrities. We speak at a level that their associates and friends and family hear. And then it percolates up to them, and you see what the result is. Because ultimately, even though they may be getting their paychecks from some white corporation, at the end of the day, they need that street credibility. And there is no entity on the planet who has more street cred than the black media. We decide who has street cred and who doesn't. And as for Orca and Gayle Skank, they never had a scrap or a scintilla of it to begin with. See, you can't bestow legitimacy upon yourself with the black street. That's what the white media is figuring out now. They're figuring, we decide, we got to choose who the black leaders were. Well, you got to say who you would accept as black leaders, but you don't get to say who we accept. But all this stuff that's going on, this is the result of the white media, the men who run the white media, who are the biggest sexual predators on the planet, trying to use their platform for the sake of scapegoating black men. We're going to get the story's always going to be about black men. If you mention something about a white man, you make sure that a black man gets mentioned. It doesn't matter if he's being proved innocent or not. It doesn't matter if the charges or the accusations have no merit or not. You just make sure you mention a black person. Make sure you throw one in there. We cannot allow for white males to be the face of sexual predation, especially not white men who run the media. We cannot allow ourselves to be the face of sexual predation. It's got to be a black face. And we're going to make sure that it's a black face. And just to make sure that, to ward off the accusation of racism, we're going to go ahead and get some of our bought and paid for mammies to get out here and spew the lies for us. At least that was the plan. You got these white media executives who boast and brag, and they want to make sure that it's perfectly clear. Hey, we're the ones who decide who works and who doesn't work in this town. If you're on our good side, you get the golden nod, and you're going to get job offers and roles thrown at you just as a matter of course. You won't have to work for it because it's not what you work for, it's what's handed to you. And we're the ones who decide what you get or what you don't get. We're the ones who control the media. We're the ones who decide who gets hired and who doesn't. I make one phone call, you never work in this town again. And everyone knows it. That's part of the reason why they don't mind taking the women who they're going to victimize and showing them around. Hey, this is my good buddy, the head of CBS News. Hey, you see that guy over there? That's Chris Albrecht. He's the former head of HBO, and he's currently the CEO of Starz. Hey, you see that guy over there? That's Michael Oreskes. He's the vice president of NPR. Hey, there's my good buddy Harvey Weinstein. He's the one who made all of those little starlets like Jennifer Lawrence a somebody. You want to know who made Quentin Tarantino a somebody? You want to know who gave Salma Hayek the ability to be a working actress, and Charlize Theron and a number of other little serious actresses? Hey, you want to be a serious actress? Harvey's the only game in town. See, these are my buddies. These are friends of mine. I played golf with them. Why? We were hanging out just yesterday. And hey, you prove yourself. Could put in the good word for you too. And hey, there goes my good buddy Donald Trump. And of course, after that, it need not be said that you get on my bad side and next time I'm playing golf with them, we just spread the word. Hey, so and so actress over here, like Ashley Judd, somebody who won't play ball. Well, this is somebody who doesn't need to be in Lord of the Rings. They're just going to be a problem. And that's what happens. Next thing you know, the roles start drying up. You go from being in demand to persona non grata. And that is the message that gets put across. But it can only be done by men at that level. These are the men who decide what's going to be front of mind. They're the ones who decide what is going to be news. If they decide, well, sexual harassment is not something that people really care about, well, guess what ain't going to be front of mind? Well, we got to focus on these black guys over here. These black guys are the extremists, And, the police are the good guys here, and these niggers, if they just obey the law, And they use their platform in order to do nonstop hit pieces against black people. This is not merely a matter of some malevolent network anchor or some despicable TV producer. These are the guys who run the white media. Now, why is it that CBS in particular happens to be on a tear about this? Well, you got to look at CBS in specific. What Gayle King did was she's doing the bidding of her media masters. And please, as I'm about to demonstrate to you, do not think that just because a few of these guys got shown the door, that apparently things have changed. I'm going to show you how you move one scumbag out, you get others just as bad, because you cannot rise through the ranks of the white media without proving that you are on their side. You got to show that you are part of that depraved, sick, perverted culture. Now, the first person we can start with, of course, is going to be the former head of CBS himself, Les Moonves, Gayle King's former boss. You see, Gayle was real proud of knowing old molester Moonves just a few years ago. Why? She took pictures with him, took pictures with his bop, Julie Chen. And you notice that she has no hard questions for Julie Chen. No questions about, Julie, you and I are co-workers, and we need to talk to you about that husband of yours and all these accusations. No questions about Les Moonves. Yeah, she knows that that's not what she's there for. They've made it very clear to her. You better not be doing any of that stuff. No questions about molester Moonves. None whatsoever. As I told you guys about a couple of years ago, back when molester Moonves was being shown out the door, he went from having a platinum parachute to merely a golden parachute. But before they did that, CBS was forced to have to put out a face-saving so-called report, which, by the way, was lighter on details than you might first have it told to you. The white media makes it sound like it's a tell-all expose. The hell it was, man. They went light, real light. It was the very epitome of vague. It was the very epitome of circuitous. They were doing every end run around the specifics that they could. But the report detailed that molester Moonves was engaged in multiple acts of serious non-consensual sexual conduct, both in and outside of the workplace. Man, this dude, he was jumping on anything that had a pulse. Multiple acts of serious non-consensual sexual misconduct. This is not merely an accusation. This is something that the lawyers hired by CBS came back with. This is not something that was done by lawyers for one of molester Moonves' accusers. This is what CBS's lawyers, Viacom's lawyers, came up with. They were the ones who looked into this and they said, whoa, this is real. This actually happened. And this was serious and it was non-consensual. Isn't there a word for non-consensual sex? Isn't there a word for that? Well, it was a word that was applied and plastered to Bill Cosby, and they have no problem applying it to R. Kelly. But the second that we talk about a white man, especially a white man who's in a position to give jobs to people, all of a sudden it stops being the R word, and it becomes serious non-consensual sex. Yeah, talk about your color-coded injustice system. One vocabulary, one standard for black people, and no standard for the white supremacists. But CBS's own lawyers had to admit that molester Moonves had been evasive and untruthful, and he deliberately lied about his sexual misconduct. Now, the question then becomes, if molester Moonves was doing all this, where the hell's Gayle Skank at? Where's Orca Winfrey? She doesn't work for CBS anymore. Ain't worked for him in years. So she's going to go ahead and do some specials on her little pretend vanity project channel, right? Orca was so hot and bothered about false, phony baloney accusations against Russell Simmons. Well, you see, Russell Simmons was the head of a record label, and that being the case, that's what makes this relevant. Well, Les Moonves was the chairman of one of the biggest media corporations on the planet. This man was the creator of a number of highly successful TV shows, and he took CBS from being a struggling network to the undisputed leader of network television. And yet, for some damn reason, Apple Plus doesn't want to do any documentaries about Les Moonves. They're not talking to his victims. There's an entire freaking report about him written by his own former company, and yet Apple Plus isn't doing any documentaries about that. And Orca isn't looking to headline any documentaries about that. She's not looking to rubber stamp or to lend her America's best black friend cred to that. So when we're talking about white men, Oprah Winfrey is MIA. She's not looking to lead the charge against them. But whenever you're talking about a black man, oh, well, I can't stand with this person anymore. See, that's proof that Michael Jackson's guilty as hell, because I have said that I just can't defend him anymore. So I'm giving the green light. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Go in on him. You paid me to. You paid me to say this crap, and I'm saying it. That's the reason why this is happening. Les Moonves decided not merely who worked and who didn't work at Viacom, or rather CBS's corporate office. He decided who worked and who didn't work on a number of stations, not just CBS alone. He decided whether or not you had a career or not. If Les Moonves decided that he liked you, or at the very least that he didn't have anything against you, well, even if your TV show goes under, you know, like Simon Baker, that dude had a number of shows on CBS. Don't worry, there'll always be another show that they'll always float another pilot your way. You just stay on the boss's good side, and you'll go from the I forget what his first TV show on CBS was. What was it? The Advocate or something, or The Defender or something. Then he had that show with Ray Liotta, Smith. Talk about a generic name for a generic nothing. And then finally, The Mentalist. Well, third time was a charm, I suppose. But that's what happens if the boss likes you. Doesn't matter how many flops you have. If you're a white guy, you're going to get an unlimited number of new tries, like a video game. Try again. You get an unlimited number of free chances. But if you refuse to play ball or play with his, then you have no chance. So it's not hard to see what the connective tissue here is. You want to know why it is that these networks, you got women who'll be working as assistants to the Charlie Roses and the molester Moonveses and the Harvey Weinsteins, and yet they don't say anything? Look at Gayle Skank. Nobody's ever looked at Gayle Skank and said, well, Gayle, you're co-workers with these guys. See, that's part of the game that they play. They put up this phony front of, oh, gee, we don't know why it is that, oh, these women, why is it that they don't say anything? They know exactly what it is. They're playing the game. And they're also, in their minds, eliminating the competition. The problem is not a matter of you got these women who are terrified of these white men. No, these white men are their sugar daddies. Or sugar zaddies, I should say. These white men are their ticket to ride. As long as molester Moonves has a job, you're guaranteed to have one too, because you know you're his nice little tool. Your job is to rubber stamp whatever racism the network puts out under the guise of network reporting. Your job is to be the black face reporting the white lies. And as long as you continue to do that function, you're going to have a job. But what needs to be said, and this is just the freaking truth here, there is a queen bee syndrome that is pernicious and vicious among women. You want to know why it is that so many females at the top do not do anything to protect or otherwise stick up for other women? It's because as far as they're concerned, it's like freaking Highlander. There can only be one. You think that Gayle Skank is looking to make room for Renee Seiler, or looking to make room for any black woman who's younger than her? Because it would be easy to find a black female prettier than her, with a more pleasant voice than her, with a much more friendly on-screen presence than her. She knows that. So far as she's concerned, we got to ditch all of these black women. Hell, we got to ditch all the black people. I don't even want black people on my show. I want to be the only black person here, and I damn sure want to be the only black woman here. And that's how it is for a number of these females who get themselves into an executive assistant position. As far as they're concerned, they're going to start curating what females get in. And as far as they're concerned, if the boss is giving these broads a hard time or using them, well, that's what you get for horning in on my action. This is my position, and I'm not looking to have a successor. Ain't going to be but one female here, and it's going to be me. That's the reason why this keeps happening, but nobody calls that out. Because you got a lot of these females who are playing the game, and it's a mutual protection racket. The same reason why you don't see ABC going in on CBS, you don't see NBC going in on them. None of them seem very interested in asking what the hell is wrong with CBS, what the hell is wrong with these networks in general. None of them seem interested in doing any exposés. It's mutual protection. But all of them are obsessed with going after black men. They are all hyper obsessed with that, because they're trying to protect themselves. And speaking of protection, we will get to Charlie Rose in a minute, but we're going to work our way there. Everybody should be familiar with the legendary Don Hewitt, the creator of 60 Minutes. Oh yeah, Don Hewitt. Saint Don of Hewitt, the man who walked on water, the man who redefined what network news could be, the gold standard, Don Hewitt, and also a sexual predator. CNN reported a little over a year ago that CBS is still paying legal settlements over allegations of sexual assault, not sexual harassment, sexual assault. And as we know, when it comes to dealing with white men, especially white media executives, the language always gets watered down. They don't use the R word when talking about white men. It's always non-consensual sex or sexual assault. We ain't going to use the R word. We got to be real careful with the words we use. Can't come straight up the middle. But you had Don Hewitt, who had been accused of essentially rape, and CBS is still paying out a settlement. By the way, for those of you who didn't know, Don Hewitt died in 2009. And CNN made this report in 2018. Now, what's that tell you? So CBS, the company that Gayle Skank works for, the company that employs this hag who decided that she was going to slander a dead man who he and his child had died. She has not given one syllable of sympathy for them, but she wants everyone to know Kobe Bryant was once accused, falsely, of a crime that Les Moonves has already copped to. And that Don Hewitt, the legendary Don Hewitt, don't want to leave off the legendary, that he also copped to. These guys said, yeah, we had non-consensual sex with these women, and here's a payoff, and get off of our backs about it. Is just the way we roll. You see, the whole thing about that payout that Don Hewitt had 60 Minutes footed the bill for it. Kind of reminds you of Harvey Weinstein and the payouts he's done. His insurance is covering the bill for that one. But so far, CBS has paid this woman $5 million plus. So she's gotten over $5 million. And this is for stuff that happened back in the freaking 1980s, for God's sakes. She's been paid $5 million so far, and they've agreed to pay her $75,000 annually for the rest of her life. This woman's getting caked off sweet, ain't she? What in God's name did Don Hewitt do to this woman that would be worth over $5 million plus paying her $75,000 for the rest of her life? Don Hewitt's dead, but they're still having to pay this woman off. That's not a settlement. That's Publishers Clearinghouse sweepstakes that this woman got. But this is what's going on at CBS, and Gayle Skank is completely and thoroughly disinterested in it. She could care less about that. Now, here's where the rubber meets the road, and this is where things really get deep. See, a lot of you think that, well, Les Moonves was shown out the door, so that means that that problem was solved, and Don Hewitt's now safely in his crypt, where Gayle can claim, I can't do an interview with him now, he's dead. And I can't even ask any questions about him, he's dead. Well, Kobe Bryant's dead. Well, you see, Kobe Bryant, it's about his legacy, you see. Well, don't you want to talk about Don Hewitt's legacy? Don Hewitt's legacy is off limits. But look at who it was who replaced Don Hewitt. Jeff Fager. This is the man who would be the successor to Don Hewitt as the head of 60 Minutes. And what do we find out about Jeff Fager? Well, it wasn't long at all before accusations about him came to light. Gee, who would have thought? And it's bad enough that there were accusations against this Fager character. It's how he reacted and responded to those accusations that shows you exactly what kind of place CBS is. And it also puts the lie to Gayle Skank being anything other than a white supremacist meat puppet who understands that her criticism is supposed to be about black men only. You see, as reported by the New York Times, when CBS's 60 Minutes decided that somebody would at least mention, hey, we're looking into doing a story about the accusations against CBS, this way we can regain something resembling credibility with the audience, because they're looking at us as being a house of pedophiles. Yeah, because you are. That's probably why the public considers CBS to be a house full of pedophiles, because they are. And then somebody made it clear, this investigation that 60 Minutes is talking about, it's not going to stop at old Molester Moonves. CBS itself had 2 law firms investigating a number of accusations leveled against CBS executives, including Jeff Fager. And one of the accusations was that he had been touching female colleagues in a way that made them feel uncomfortable. Now, they always water it down. Whenever the accused is white, they always water it down. So I don't want to even imagine what body parts he was touching. But moreover, they said that Jeff Fager had allowed a culture of harassment to fester at 60 Minutes. So this is exactly what we've always said. You cannot have a Bill O'Reilly or a Matt Lauer without having a Roger Ailes or a Molester Moonves or a Jeff Fager protecting them. You want to know why it is that the on-air talent like Charlie Rose are running around groping the females? It's because they know that their boss isn't going to fire them because their boss is doing the exact same things. That's what goes on there. That's what goes on at CBS. So when somebody at 60 Minutes let it slip that, hey, we're going to be looking into this ourselves and doing some reporting, next thing you know, Jeff Fager, this is the guy who runs 60 Minutes. He sent a note. He decided to send a note to the reporterette who was working on the story, telling her to be careful. And then he wrote to her, there are people who lost their jobs trying to harm me, and if you pass on these damaging claims without your own reporting to back them up, that will become a serious problem. Man, this dude, he went full Don Corleone on her. There are people who lost their jobs trying to harm me, and unless you want to be in the unemployment line, you better be real careful. This is CBS, man. This is CBS acting like this is the guy who's the head of former head of CBS News, and he was the head of 60 Minutes at that time. This is what was going on. Gayle Skank ain't said a word about it. So it's bad enough that Don Hewitt kicked the bucket, and he was a sexual predator, but his successor was just as bad. At least Don Hewitt had the decency not to be threatening people's jobs. Not Jeff Fager. He's like, heck, what do I got to be scared of? Well, Jeff Fager got shown the door, but do you want to make any avowals as to the decency or morality of his successor? I mean, you see how this happens. You put one scumbag out the door and you replace him with someone who's even worse. So if anyone who thinks, well, that was just Molester Moonves. You see, there's somebody else there who's the head of CBS now, and I'm sure he does things differently. Do you see the people at CBS actually reporting on them? Do you see them looking at the sexual harassment and sexual assaults that have taken place by numerous white media personalities? Or do you see them trying to find the most notable Negro that they can report on or make something up about or just lie altogether? And we would be remiss if we didn't say something regarding Charlie Rose. who Gayle Skank worked with for 5 freaking years. But she didn't see anything, didn't hear anything, didn't know anything. You know, it happens to be a well-known truth that Charlie Rose happens to be a casual bigot. Don't take my word for it. You can take the word of one of his former producers for it. She went on Twitter and went ahead and put out just a little bit of the man's dirty laundry out there. And she talked about how when she was a producer on his show, she had to be real careful every single day about how she responded to what she described as the casual racism or sexually predatory behavior on his show. This is what was going on at PBS, by the way. And this black woman then went on to point out that she had already spoken out about racialized, microaggressive racism, and she was punished for it. And as for that sexually predatory behavior, it was usually ignored or accepted or laughed off because it was inherent to the daily culture of the Charlie Rose Show. Yeah, you want to be employed here, this just goes with the territory. But it was what she said next that got my attention. She said Charlie regularly made me feel like I should be grateful for the job, like it was a handout, and would then castigate me for not excelling at it. Excelling meaning that basically if you ain't getting on your hands and knees for him, you ain't doing your job right. But here's the coup de grace. She points out Charlie is from Henderson, North Carolina, where the KKK has a white page listing. He boasted friendships with black folks in the same way he boasted his respect for women. Gee, those photos that Gayle Skank takes with Charlie Rose are starting to make a lot more sense now, aren't they? Finally, this former producer ends by saying, which obviously in and of itself does not make him a racist. Well, I guess the woman, she wants to work in media, so she's got to give herself that escape hatch. I'm not calling him a racist, mind you. I'm just saying he does everything that a racist would do. Then she says, but there wasn't a single day that went by during my experience working with him that I believed he thought black people were his equals. And then she gives a link to a YouTube video and says, watch all the way to the end. Now, we could have done without her little obligatory disclaimer, but, you know, that's what you find about these Negroes who are working in the white media. By the way, 50 Cent has decided that he needed to walk back his earlier strident stance regarding Oprah Winfrey. When 50 temporarily found a little bit of nerve and decided to clap back at Oprah Winfrey, he made sure that he mentioned it was about race. Why are you always going after black men? But now that he's talking about Gayle Skank slandering Kobe Bryant, now all of a sudden he ain't talking about black men anymore. It's just, well, I think it's unfair. Yeah, he started to walk that one back real slick, didn't he? All of a sudden he's completely and thoroughly deracialized his criticism. Now it ain't about black men anymore. It's just about, well, it's unfair. I think there's been a little bit overblown. The white media trying to claim that Snoop Dogg is apologized. He ain't apologized for nothing that he said about Gayle Skank. Oh, he walked some of it back. No, he didn't. What he simply said was, I ain't talking about coming and put a gun to her head. That's all he said. He didn't say that she wasn't going to get stepped to. He didn't say that she wouldn't be confronted. He simply said, ain't nobody saying we're going to come and bust her head open. But the thing about it is she would be confronted, and she is. The black media is confronting her. We're confronting her online. That's what's happening. People have been coming to check her, and the white media saying, you don't say anything about her. Ain't nobody intimidated. White media, you ain't intimidating nobody. If anything, you're only emboldening us. When you challenge our strength, that's when we put on the brass knuckles, and that's when we come for you. Which is what we've been doing for the last few days. We've been dragging your tools, breaking your tools, taking them out of your hands and breaking them. You don't get to keep Gayle Skank around as long as you want to. She only gets to hang around until we get a critical mass of black support to break her. And you understand that if this black media has the power to break the white media's black bootlick tools, how long before we break the ones wielding those tools? Right now, the white media thinks to themselves that, well, we decide whether or not all of this sexually rapacious white executives in the media is a story or not. But now they're looking and going, whoa, Snoop actually had the guts to say, why didn't you say nothing about Weinstein? or Oprah's spiritual advisor. Man, if they get bold like that, how long before one of them says, ain't you going to say anything about Chris Albrecht over at Stars? Well, 50 ain't going to say nothing about him. You can see the pictures of 50 looking just like Jay-Z sitting next to the NFL commissioner Goodell. You can see pictures of 50 Cent sitting next to Chris Albrecht, yucking it up. You want to know why it is that 50 all of a sudden has been softening his stance and why he's, I'm all in favor of the movement? It's because of the fact that 50 sees himself as being part of the white media now. He sees himself as being an apparatus of it. He's an auxiliary to it. He's trying to get a TV deal. He wants to, apparently he thinks to himself, Dame Dash just thinks he's a media mogul. I'm going to be the real thing. That's what 50 Cent's trying to do. He thinks to himself that he's going to transition from a rapper to a white television producer. And if that's what he wants to do, fine. But the truth of the matter happens to be, any black folks out there who think that we're going to be able to have these rappers speaking for us and that these guys are going to be fighting the good fight, come on. If you want to know whether or not somebody's really going to be on the side of the angels, just ask where they get their daily bread from. Now, Snoop might be barking a little bit at the white media, but he ain't going to bite the hand that's feeding him. And neither is 50 Cent. So far we've given the rundown of the dirty shop that Gayle Skank works for. I've given you these 4 white men, all of them executives, by the way. We're not talking about guys who sweep the floors. We're talking about individuals who decide who works and who doesn't work. Company presidents, network division chiefs. That's the level of the individuals that we're talking about here. And as we've seen with Jeff Fager, he's sitting here when the heat gets put on him, when the spotlight gets put on him, he's saying, then you better be real careful. Now, this is how this guy responds to a fellow CBS News employee about accusations that he knows to be the truth. What do you think he or his successor or his friends will do if they're looking and going, I got to make sure that the attention never gets put on me in the first place? What do you think he's going to do? It's going to be all Kobe Bryant. And what they expected was, the entire idea that they had was that Gayle Skank was going to be their punching bag. She was going to be their crash dummy. Hey, Gayle, we got a job for you. What is it, massa? Well, Gayle, what we want you to do is we want you to go ahead and talk to Lisa Leslie, and then in the middle of the interview, say what about Kobe Bryant? But Lisa Leslie has nothing to do with Kobe Bryant. They weren't even in the same ball league. Well, we need to talk about Kobe Bryant. We need to bring it up. But why? Don't you know people are going to be outraged? I will get dragged online. We know, but the thing is, nobody's going to be talking about Weinstein. It's about time for him to have to either testify in court or try to find a way to get out of it. The Weinstein trial is on, and too many people are talking about it. And on top of that, there's too much drum banging going on from the new voices of black media. They've been putting a spotlight on Les Moonves, and Oprah Winfrey just had to withdraw her name from the Russell Simmons documentary, so she won't be there to say that, to ward off accusations of racism. We're not going to be able to hide behind her. So we need to find a way to get black folks outraged, but you're going to be the one who takes the heat. You're going to be our heat shield on this one. You'll be the crash dummy. Okay. And that's what was supposed to happen. What was supposed to happen was she was supposed to slander Kobe Bryant. And what they thought was going to occur was all the black folks were just going to say, Gayle, you was wrong for that. That's what they were expecting. But instead, what happened was people did what the black media have said. Anytime they bring up a black man's name, you bring up one of these white corporate executives' names. And that's what happened. People started saying, hey, what about Weinstein? People started saying, hey, what about Les Moonves? What about Charlie Rose? Gayle, you worked with Charlie Rose for 5 years. And you haven't said one piddling word about it. Well, actually, she has said some words about Charlie Rose. What she said was that she's still close friends with him. And she believes in redemption. And there's 2 sides to every story. By the way, that line, 2 sides to every story, that's the same stuff that Mika Brzezinski said when Mark Halperin got accused of sexual harassment over at MSNBC, and the same thing that Mo Lester Moonves' wife, Julie Chen, said about him. 2 sides to every story. Same thing that Catherine Zeta-Jones said when Michael Douglas was accused of sexual harassment. Well, we ain't got to worry about Michael Douglas's father, Kirk Douglas. There have always been accusations about him and rape. But as far as Michael Douglas goes, Catherine Zeta-Jones said, "We should believe women, but not this woman, though. You can't believe her. Besides, there's two sides to every story." So that line, you can tell that that's the line that they've been told to say. That's the point that needs to be hammered home relentlessly. You need to be bringing up the names of these network executives and asking, why are these guys not in prison? Les Moonves admitted to the stuff that he was accused of. You had a law firm, not even lawyers working for his accusers. You had lawyers working for CBS who said this stuff that he did, this is serious non-consensual sexual act stuff that this guy did. Serious non-consensual sex. Yeah, we don't want to say the R word, kids. And that's what's going on over at CBS. That Gayle Skank is not concerned about. But then again, you ain't got any concern coming from Joy Reid or Rachel Maddow or Oprah Winfrey. Yeah, all these women in media, and all of them are conveniently and thoroughly, completely unconcerned with how these men are taking advantage of women over and over again. You want to know what the problem is? The problem is these women know all about it. And as far as they're concerned, well, that's what you get for trying to hone in on my hustle. That's how these women live with themselves. See, when the accused is black, we need to hear from all the victims. We need to hear from the victims. Victims. There were victims, you see. Victims. Kobe Bryant. Victims. Cosby. Victims. Michael Jackson. Victims. Victims. Make sure you say that word victims a lot. Say it whether it fits or not. Victims. When the accused is white, then they're not victims anymore. They're only accusers. And even then, as Lena Dunham said, some women do lie. But of course, Lena Dunham was talking about a black woman who had accused a white man. Or as Gayle King and Mika Brzezinski and Julie Chen say, there's two sides to every story. You see, if you happen to have a white man who's accused of something, then Gayle and Mika and all the other female anchors all of a sudden talk about how they were fired very suddenly and whatever happened to due process and I was just surprised how they were just ushered out the door. They make it into an issue of how quickly the punishment came down. Oh, we don't even know if this was accurate or not. They just got shoveled out the door. And this is how you know that there's a program at work, because of how consistent the rhetoric is. If you're white, then there's a completely and thoroughly different vocabulary that gets used as opposed to if the person accused is black. You can have all the evidence in the world. You can have the company's own lawyers find, yep, Les, you engaged in serious non-consensual sex with these women. You can have payouts going on for decades like with Don Hewitt. Chris Albrecht was the head of HBO. He was the CEO of HBO back in the early aughts. And what happened was he got fired in 2007 because he had assaulted his girlfriend in Las Vegas, got arrested for it. But this wasn't the first time he had done something like this. Back in 1991, there was a violent altercation that Albrecht had been involved in with a female subordinate who he was romantically involved with. And he decided that he would choke this woman. And wasn't some kinky stuff neither. Apparently this woman I guess she was talking a little bit too much for his taste, and he decided, let me go ahead and choke this heifer and show her how serious I am. Just look at this behavior going on for decades. Chris Albrecht has a freaking criminal track record going back to the early 90s, 30 years of this, and now he's the head of Starz Television. Him and 50 Cent are hanging out together. So this is who 50 Cent's new best bud is. And he's not being accused of anything. Now, it makes sense to an extent that 50 Cent isn't going to accuse the guy of anything, but does it make sense that 50 Cent's not accusing any of these other white network executives? No, they've told him, hey, 50, you on the team now. You're our boy now. And the same way that we hand them gigs to them other starlets and such, we're going to keep giving you these network. Why, you got a first look, first ink deal with your name on it. All you got to do is you make sure you don't bring our names up. You just make sure you don't cast aspersions on us. He's made a deal with the devil. You got to follow the money, family. Follow the freaking money. You cannot be depending on these black celebrities. Even if they say something that sounds okay for a minute, you better believe the backtrack or the turnaround or the pivot is going to come 2 seconds later. The only voices you can afford to listen to are the black media, because we don't depend on the white media for one crumb of our daily bread. They are not our source. You're our source. We are battle tested, battle proven, and time proven. We've withstood the test of time. While some other fakers, frauds, and phonies get propped up by the Byron Allen fan club, these clowns blow away like dry leaves. They're gone. We're still here. So please, I think it's nice that Snoop Dogg signal boosted what we've been saying, but the truth of the matter is he heard it from us. He heard it from his people who have listened to us. What we say percolates and rises until it eventually makes those guys uncomfortable. You've seen what's been happening just in the last year alone. You've had members of Congress. You had the former head of the DNC, Howard Dean, or as I like to call him, Howard Scream Dean. You've had Hollywood starlets in the last couple of weeks alone. You've had the very people who the white media talks about who have been chattering their gums at the black media. They hear us. Because when it comes time to talk about this, we are the leading voices of it. We're some of the most high-profile people in new media putting the word out. And you guys are the reason why it's been reaching them, because what we say here, you have been lifting. And one of the things that they don't like to talk about is the former senior vice president of news for NPR. Notice how that comes up over and over again. Jeff Fager, former head of CBS News. And now the former head of news for NPR, turns out that this guy, Michael Oreskes, he was involved in sexual harassment. There are allegations against him going back decades. At least 3 women filed complaints, and then NPR had to amend their own story and say, we found another one. Over the course of 20 years, and these are just the ones that have come out. So these are the people who put together the news that you watch. You turn on CBS, who's putting together the news? Les Moonves and Jeff Fager, 2 serial sexual predators. You turn on NPR and wonder, why is it that NPR seems to basically be a slightly watered down white supremacist mouthpiece? How come they're doing the same kind of anti-black racism that CBS does? Well, look at who their head of news is. Look who the vice president for news is, Michael Oreskes, a serial accused sexual predator. These are the guys who put together the news, and then you wonder why it is that the white media, when it comes time to do some story, they have zero interest in any of these guys. They have zero interest in the Kevin Spaceys and the Louis C.K.'s, and they have no interest in the Matt Lauers, no interest in the Rob Lowe's. They have no interest in the Stephen Collins. They have no interest in any of these guys, but they are hyper obsessed with black men. There's a program at work here, and they're the ones in charge of programming. Yes, there is definitely a problem with people like Gayle Skank and Orca Winfrey, but the problem goes deeper than that. You got to look at who it is who puts them out there, because these idiots wouldn't be anywhere. We wouldn't even know who they were if it wasn't for the fact that you got these white media executives, the biggest sexual predators on the planet, who happen to be the ones pushing them out there. They're the ones who hold people's jobs over their heads. The story ought to be about them because they're the ones doing this. R. Kelly, regardless of what you think about R. Kelly, he doesn't hold anyone's job over their head. Now, if you want to say that he took advantage of some underage girls, well, you can go ahead and make that accusation if you want to. And while we're at it, are we going to be talking about Woody Allen? This guy adopts a girl, and then next thing you know, a few years later, it's like a damn near 30-year age difference between him. He decides, I want to marry her. Yeah, I mean, because there's nothing better than having somebody who you take from Pampers to high school graduation and all of it. You know, you're old enough to be your grandfather. This is a good person to be marrying. Keep it in the family, I suppose. But nobody talks about Woody Allen, and nobody talks about David Bowie. After David Bowie died, you had people who pointed out that before we go lionizing this guy, we should also mention that in addition to music, the guy was also a pedophile. He had sex with underage girls. Well, the white media immediately jumped on that and was like, we don't do that. We don't sit here and denigrate our heroes. And by the way, that's not my wording, that's theirs. See, when it comes to a white person, a white man who's been accused of some sort of sexual impropriety or sexual assault or even rape, well, especially if this is a famous white man, a man of stature and standing, well, we don't want to get people in the habit of taking down our icons or to think that digging under the fingernails of our heroes is something they ought to do, no matter what they've done. You had the Daily Beast who put out an article. There were a lot of articles like this, but I thought the Daily Beast did a particular classic of white-splaining, where they got this woman to get out there, and you would have thought that it was Andrew Breitbart risen from his grave writing this garbage. But she wrote that everything that had been used to try to explain to people, hey, you shouldn't be going after Bill Cosby, or at the very least, you might want to pump your brakes on it, because back in the 1970s, and people were like, oh, no, that doesn't mean anything. Who cares? Well, you notice how these women didn't say anything for 40 freaking years. I ought to tell you something. It was only when somebody decided, hey, you can get rich if you make a claim against somebody, then all of a sudden, I got a claim. They're all trying to cash in on the fact that they knew a celebrity. That's what's going on here. Well, that's what's going on if it's a white man. If it's a white man, well, there's two sides to every story, and I believe in redemption, and women do lie, you know. But Daily Beast went overboard. They were saying hands off David Bowie. In fact, you should not be taking down our heroes, period. See, when Bill Cosby was accused of sexual impropriety taking place in the 70s, he's got to go to prison. Even though he denies all of it. David Bowie, well, this stuff has been all but proven, and well, there was a different standard back then. There was a culture of hedonism. Well, Cosby was in the middle of it, don't you think? Oh, no, that nigger knew what he was doing. No excuse for that nigger. And then this writer goes on to say, apparently we can't resist imposing today's cultural standards on a different time. Oh, you mean like the 1970s when Bill Cosby was accused of doing something, right? On a different time, right? No, that's different. That's different. We can't resist dancing on our heroes' graves. There goes that phrase, our heroes. She ain't talking about the black one. She's talking about, this is a message, an internal message from a white media outlet to the white public. Hey, knock it off with going after David Bowie. This is not a precedent that we want to set. You're off code. That's what this piece is meant to say. There were a number of pieces just like this one. Hands off David Bowie. Not that they cared about David Bowie, but it's a matter of this is not something we want to become habit forming. Going after David Bowie like this, that's off code. And then she says she blames this on being people who want to champion a pet political cause's fault. These people are just trying to champion their pet political causes. Yeah, not having sex with underage girls, that's a pet political cause. Well, if that's going to be our moral standard, then what the hell are you going after R. Kelly for? You might as well let R. Kelly go. Hell, you might as well induct R. Kelly into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. He would fit right in with Elvis Presley and the rest of the pedophiles then. Oh, but this isn't about sexual impropriety. This is about skin color. And that Daily Beast writer, just to make sure, in case you didn't catch the Our Heroes the first time, she went ahead and immediately repeated it. Now the poison arrows aimed at our heroes take on an extra velocity on the internet. Now, I was looking at this piece. It was only written in 2016, just a few years ago. And I was sitting there thinking, even though this is before Me Too, I'm going, well, you know, they got to throw a black man in there. Whenever you're trying to defend white male sexual impropriety, you got to make sure that you throw a black man's name in there, whether it fits or not. That's the formula, and the Daily Beast was no exception. Even though they put it at the end of the article, they wanted to make sure that they put this in there. Our impulses are split. We don't want to see our heroes as monsters, yet we've seen many people get away with bad behavior. Bill Cosby, for example. This is in 2016. Hell, Bill Cosby wasn't even on trial at that point. The Me Too movement hadn't even started in 2016. That wouldn't be until 2017. And yet here they are saying people getting away with bad behavior. Don't you think that should be litigated in court before you say he's getting away with bad behavior? No, but they're making the point. This is the white racist propaganda. This is not even code speak. This is, hey, our heroes are not monsters no matter what they've done. And she wants to draw the distinction. The Daily Beast, the white media, draws the distinction. When we say our heroes, we're not talking about Americans or even people. We're talking about white people. Don't say anything about white men accused of rape or sexual assault or pedophilia or anything. Instead, you only say that about black people. That's what this sentence says loud and clear. Our heroes are not to be ever pointed to as having done wrong. You don't diminish or otherwise reduce our heroes, white heroes. That's the black ones. You only do that with them. Then she ends this scribbled piece by saying, okay, David Bowie hadn't been accused of being a serial rapist. No, what she means is he hadn't been charged with it. He's being accused of it now posthumously, though. He hadn't been charged with it because he has the complexion for the protection, same way that Elvis Presley was never charged, or Jerry Lee Lewis was never charged, or Mick Jagger. These guys never get charged. The accusations can be buried. But she goes, he had sex with an underage woman. I think she meant to say girl, because that's what an underage woman is. If you are a woman, that means you're above age. We don't say that a 12-year-old's a woman. Though the white media will try to describe a 12-year-old black boy who gets murdered by the police in Cleveland as being a young man. All of us, we want to make sure we put man on there. David Bowie didn't have sex with an underage woman. He didn't have sex with a woman at all. He had sex with a child. But for the Daily Beast, in no way does that detract from his prodigious achievements as a musician, artist, and, dare I say it, a person. Yeah, so, hey, a little pedophilia now and then, a little statutory rape here and there. It's all part of the game, don't you know? Gee, isn't it interesting, though, that even though the standards have changed for some damn reason, the Daily Beast is not interested in changing with the times. They're not interested in getting with the times at all. Kind of tells you about what would they say regarding slavery. Oh, David Bowie was a man of his time. They would also give the exact same lies for a Thomas Jefferson or a George Washington or any other slave owner. Oh, these were men of their time. They're putting it right in front of you. This is the white media saying this. And this is the same white media who they shoehorned Bill Cosby's name into an article that had nothing to do with him. This before he had even been charged. This before he had even been on trial, before he had even been convicted. Years before that happened, here's what they're doing. I mean, this is way before Me Too broke out, but this is the format. This predates Me Too. It lets you know this is a program at work here. This is the white media template. If you bring up a white man's name connected with sexual impropriety, you better put a black man's name in there. Make sure you do not let our heroes be seen as monsters. But if you talk about the black guy, you don't give him any consideration at all. You don't say that, well, he's merely been accused, not proven of anything. You don't say, well, that doesn't detract from his achievements. I mean, it's not like he's been proven to have done anything. Instead, it's he's been getting away with bad behavior. Isn't David Bowie's behavior bad? And he got away with it. Yeah, this is how white supremacy works. Blatant double standards, because that's part of the psychological breaking process. It's important that you understand this. This is where this stuff is coming from. Where's this nonstop jihad of anti-black racism, trying to make black men into the face of sexual predation, trying to get the attention off of all of these white sexual predators? Where's this coming from? It's coming from the media itself. They are the biggest sexual predators in town, not because I say so, but because it's been proven so. Gayle Skank and Orca Winfrey are tools in the hands of their white paymasters. But the thing is, we're disarming their white paymasters, taking the tools out of their hands and eventually breaking the hands themselves. They need to have some black tools who are willing to get out there and sell the soap for them. But the problem they face now is an existential crisis. It's not just a matter of, can we find another black bootlick who's willing to talk grimy about black people for the sake of protecting the white supremacists. The problem now is we have delegitimized that process. We have made it now where whenever they do it, it doesn't matter what black bootlick they put out there. You can put Joy Reid out there. You can put Mark Lamont, you big dummy Hill out there, and he's been just too pathetic, clearly auditioning for a job. I'm sorry, Master. I didn't mean to say nothing favorable about them Palestinians. I is so sorry, Master. I thought y'all was going to pat me on the head, you dumb nigger. And that's what happened to him. And you got all these other clowns. You got all these other idiots out here who you see online. I guess they figured that if they talk greasy about black people, and you know the ones I'm talking about. You see them on Twitter. You see them trying to get a following on YouTube or something. They figured to themselves, if I just trash black people enough time, these good white supremacists, they going to let me in the big house. Ain't happened yet, not going to. As far as white supremacy is concerned, they're not looking at the black bootlick as some sort of jobs program. You only get hired by massa to the extent that he thinks that you're useful for deceiving and misleading black people. When the slaves make it clear, we ain't listening to none of these black bootlicks. It's the message that matters. And if you come to us with the wrong message, you're dead in the water before you say the first syllable. Now the white supremacy sees that, it's like, well, hell, might as well cut these dang black bootlicks loose. They're not going to do us any damn good. There is no incentive for them not to put a white face out there trying to push the lies, because as far as they're concerned, the black ones using black bootlicks, that strategy is now backfired because of the black media. That's why this is happening. That's the reason why Skank is out there doing this garbage. Remember, there's only three, when you boil it down, there's only 3 or so actual corporations who are responsible for practically 90% of what you see and hear in the so-called news. So it doesn't matter if you see dozens of people on dozens of stations. Their talking points all come from the same 3 or so employers. For over a decade, I have fought to disabuse my people of the illusion that the white media and practically all white institutions have tried to indoctrinate you with. I've tried to help free your mind from the lie that the stuff that you see the so-called news putting on television in front of you or putting in newsprint in front of you, that somehow this is the most important information of the day that has been gathered together by a bunch of educated and highly moral people, that there are these honorable and conscientious reporters who search assiduously for the most relevant and crucial information that you need to know. See, that's the lie that the white media's pulled over the world's eyes. They've taught you that lie. They're the ones who taught you that piece of propaganda. When you turn on the news or whenever you open up a newspaper or a white media magazine, you're getting the cream of the crop of information, and it's presented to you by decent and ethical people who have only your best interest at heart. Isn't that the lie that 60 Minutes have been telling since the 60s? Don Hewitt, when he wasn't sexually predating on women, he was telling everybody 60 Minutes is the gold standard of news. Why, we do hard-hitting journalism. The highest standards, you see. Highest standards indeed. See, that whole lie that the stuff that the white media brings to you, that they are carefully curating the most important information. They don't bring you any fluff. They bring you just the real news, and it's being brought to you unbiased. It's being brought to you by people who are just searching for the facts. That's a white media fantasy created by the white media, pushed by Hollywood. It originated in the newsrooms with people like Charlie Rose and people like Jeff Fager and people like Mike Orestes, just card-carrying racists, and people like the Daily Beast, these unabashed bigots. They're the ones who created this lie, a self-aggrandizing fiction that, oh, they're the good guys of media. Why, we're the Sherlock Holmes of reporting. Just the facts, please. By the way, that phrase, just the facts, originated with Jack Webb. Jack Webb was a career suck-up to the enforcement arm of white supremacy. Go read up on Jack Webb. This guy kissed the police's behind, so he was the one who originated that phrase, just the facts, ma'am, just the facts. Yeah, for the LAPD, the single most corrupt, lying police department in the history of the world, just the facts indeed. But the white media took that exact same template and ran with it. After all, the 3 arms of white supremacy, the administrative arm, The enforcement arm and the propaganda arm, they all work for the exact same master, so it makes sense that there's a huge amount of operational overlap with the way that they go about their business. They invented the lie of journalistic integrity in order to legitimize their racism. Why? The fact that we're focusing on Bill Cosby and we're always focusing on some black man, whether they're in prison or not, whether they're dead or not. Why? This isn't white media racism. Why? It's just the news, you see. They always have some line of pap that they try to peddle to see if you're simple-minded enough to fall for it. And for a while, black people were, until we got the people on code. When you see some white media organs spouting their disinformation, you are hearing directly from the primary mouthpiece of white supremacist control. You see, in order to hold masses of people in bondage for the long haul, you don't use chains. You use disinformation. You miseducate the people. You brainwash them. You teach, or rather misteach, the people to see the world the way that their oppressor does. You misteach the people to make excuses for the system of oppression that they're under. You teach them to make excuses for the racism that comes from the institutions and the apparatuses of their oppressors. You misteach the people to repeat lies such as, the system isn't perfect, but ... You misteach them to say our justice system, our media, our government, our military, our heroes. That's what you do. You misteach them that kind of guff. These people, the oppressed, they don't own anything. The society treats them as less than human beings, and yet they have been so mentally broken and misled from birth to the point that they refer to a society that is clearly the property of their oppressors as being their society too. They refer to the things in that society, the institutions that oppress them, as being our institutions. They refer to the heroes of their oppressors as our heroes. You need a huge and sophisticated tool of propaganda to be able to brainwash people to that extent. And is there any apparatus of mind control more sophisticated and more ubiquitous than the white media? The New York Slimes profiled Gayle Skank after the Charlie Rose scandal broke. And that's where she was proudly boasting how she's still very close friends with Charlie Rose. Now, I showed you exactly who and what Charlie Rose is. Not just a sexual predator, but the dude's a racist as well. But Gayle, she went on a TV tour where she defended Charlie Rose's honor. Yep, you don't you say nothing about Massa. You gonna stop talking bad about Massa. Yeah, I guess when you've been that close to having a zaddy, even if the guy wouldn't give you the time of day, for her, that's good enough. She'll be his willing slave till death do them part. Gayle Skank went on Stephen Colbert's show, and she actually took umbrage at the fact that Colbert started off his monologue by making some jokes about Charlie Rose before she came on. She was mad. You gonna stop talking about Massa, Stephen. You gonna stop talking about Massa. In the New York Slimes piece, they wrote that, quote, friendship is important to Miss King. Gee, they don't cast any aspersions on the fact that she admits and is proud of being very close to an admitted sexual predator. The New York Times is not at all talking about how odd that is. Instead, they talk as if Charlie Rose had been merely accused of tax evasion or jaywalking or something. And rather than excoriate Gayle Skank, the New York Times practically praises her for this, as if this is a mark of character and integrity on her part. That's right. When one of our heroes is being exposed, well, that's not supposed to take away from his cultural achievements or from him as a person. Yeah, they're all operating off the same script. And of course, the same way that flies and feces are closely related, you know when Gayle King's the topic of conversation, it won't be long at all before Orca Winfrey waddles into the conversation. The Times got a quote from America's favorite mammy when she said Gayle told her that she doesn't abandon people when they make a mistake. And then Orca herself said, you certainly don't abandon them when they're down and everybody is turning away from them. I want you to take note of that. That's important. You have Orca giving a quote from Gayle Skank, and then you have Orca herself reinforcing that point. Neither Orca nor Gayle Skank gives even one syllable to Charlie Rose's victims. And they go about grievously minimizing what this man did. Oh, he made a mistake. No, when you grab the salad fork when you're supposed to be eating steak, that's making a mistake. What Charlie Rose did was sexual assault. He's a sexual predator. He admitted to it, no less. But Gayle, Skank, and Orca, they weren't very interested in that. And you know who else wasn't terribly interested in Charlie Rose's victims? The New York Times. This is part of the white media's indoctrination. Yes, there is a double standard that the white media uses, and yes, they're putting it in your face. I've always told you white supremacy believes in subjecting its victims to a daily breaking process. And when people object to something and you back down from it, that means that they've broken you. You want to break a mass of people, you have it where they see something, it's blatantly obvious that it's wrong, but in fact, the more egregious, the more wrong it is, the better. When you can just throw something in their faces that everyone agrees is totally wrong, and then you have the person just walk away and nothing happens to him, and the people don't even do anything about it, like Brock Turner. Brock Turner rapes a woman, admits that he did it. The judge says, no jail time. This guy, he has his whole life ahead of him. And he walks out of court. Well, that's how you break a society, except it backfired that once. Well, now they see that it's backfired again. You sit here deciding that you're going to impose a blatantly racist double standard. We're going to lynch a black man and his dead daughter. And you're not going to say anything about your former co-workers. Oh, we're just going to be defaming and demonizing black men. Not even. The white media is testing our resolve right now. Because in the past, we have shown that we don't have any persistence. We have spines made out of freaking jello. They know that. So they're testing and go, oh, these niggers will relent. And they're saying, whoa, there's a new generation of Negroes. And they're listening to some new voices, not the voices that the white media put out there. The white media is looking and going, they're not listening to Orca and her bragging about being the first Negro with a nationally syndicated television show. Apparently that doesn't impress this new generation. They're only interested in whether or not she's saying what they once said, and they're not letting us dictate to them what their opinions are. We can't bring in any of our flunkies to do that. They're not listening. The black people are not listening to our tools anymore. Our puppets aren't working anymore. Our strategies aren't working. They're ahead of the curve on us. This black media's got us cold before the game even begins. Damn right we do. And we're getting our people on code so that they understand how their enemy operates and how to beat their enemy. Do not let the white media subject you to a psychological breaking process. It is not okay when they pull stuff like this. You're supposed to not be in revolt. You're supposed to be fighting at this point. See, the white media makes no secret of the racist double standard precisely because history has proven that black folks will be outraged about it, but we won't actually do anything about it. To have the former slaves sitting on the sidelines saying, that ain't right. That's nothing new. The white media expects that. They expect you to be outraged, but they also expect you not to do anything. Well, that didn't happen this time. Slaves are not born. They're made. And the hallmark of a slave is no matter how much you mistreat them, they don't do anything about it. That's where the breaking process comes in. You have to teach someone to be a slave. You have to teach them that don't you call yourself raising your voice or your hand to massa. Don't you call yourself opposing massa. You got to teach the slave to hold themselves in check. And if it gets to a point where massa can't do it, well, you got to brainwash some of the slaves. Find a few corrupt cowards among the slaves' ranks, and you teach them like a pet poodle to go ahead and to try to deceive their own into staying in line. That works. You got to teach them and reteach them to stay in their place, to sit on their hands while the most unworthy of individuals enjoy the fruits of the oppressed's labor. And that miseducation process requires that you have someone who looks like the oppressed pushing the lies. You have to teach them that they deserve to be oppressed, that they deserve to be an underclass. You can teach that there's some phony Hamitic curse, Or you teach that it's a punishment from God because they did something wrong. Or you teach people that some college-educated racists calling themselves biologists or historians, why, they've proven that black oppression is merely the natural way of the universe. It's just nature, don't you know? You're oppressed because you're supposed to be. That's your place in nature's hierarchy. So when the white supremacists mistreat you, they're not doing anything wrong. Why? You don't deserve any better anyway. White supremacy's MO is to credentialize its lies. This is where trying to create the idea that their mouthpieces like the New York Slimes and CBS are prestigious because they're legitimate, they have merit, so you should listen to them because they're just bringing you the facts. Part of the black media's mission, part of our duty is to educate black people about the particular narratives that the white media uses to push its racism, the types of sophisticated templates that they employ for the sake of trying to make you think that, oh, they're not being racist towards you. Why, they're just giving the facts. Just take sports, for example. When they point out that there's some black athlete who they're going ahead and maligning in the media and saying, oh, so and so, he plays dirty or he was accused of such and such, the first thing you point out is, well, wait a minute here. There's a bunch of white athletes doing wrong. Why are you always talking about the black ones? Well, the standard media template, the standard media narrative for that is, well, black men are the majority of professional athletes, so it's only natural that they would get the majority of bad headlines. But then when you point out that black men are only the majority in football and basketball, and there's a lot of other sports out there, hockey, tennis, golf, baseball, and in those cases you got white men committing tons of crimes, well, the white media never talks about that. And when you point out the fallacy of this talking point, the white media's natural response is to say, well, football and basketball are more popular than other sports, so that justifies it. See, it's a popularity thing. So they've gone from black men are the majority of athletes. When you knock that lie down, then it becomes, well, they get the majority of the popularity you see. They tell a lie, then try to miseducate you that the lie is legitimate with a made-up talking point about math. Then when you disprove their feeble attempt to intellectualize their racism, they retreat to the old standby. I'm white and I say so. We're just going to talk about these black guys because, well, they need to be talked about. This litany of lies will continue, and this perverted social order will go on unless it's challenged. And that's where you come in. And the process starts with delegitimizing the mouthpieces who act as the tools of white supremacy. Just as white supremacy cannot put chains on you directly, they also know that they can't put white supremacists directly in front of you to tell you lies either. They got to get some bootlick to do it. You wouldn't accept it if it comes from them. White supremacy understands exactly how sophisticated it must be. White supremacy has always relied upon using certain elements from within the oppressed population in order to keep the people enslaved for the long haul. And you go ahead and take some of these bootlicks and you make them prominent. Say, hey, he's standing right beside this white man. Yeah, except the white man's got a hell of a lot more power than this black tool who only has power to the extent that the white man says he does. He's simply an employee of this white guy over here. He doesn't have any real power because if he did, he could exercise it over white men, and they never do. So that lets you know who the world's got the power and who doesn't. You see, using surrogates for the oppressor class, this confuses the oppressed population. That's why the use of surrogates and the use of bootlicks and sellouts, this has always been a time-honored tradition among the white supremacists. When you get one of the oppressed people's own to take part with the oppressors, this confuses the oppressed. They'll let one of their own get away with telling lies a hell of a lot longer than they would someone from the oppressor class. The dominant society could not possibly have done what Orca Winfrey's done for as long as Orca's gotten away with it. And by doing so, we allow these enemy agents to disrupt our internal politics. So purging the agents of white supremacy from among us is always job one. We got to identify them, light them the hell up, and we got to make them persona non grata in the community. We do not allow them to try to pretend like they're speaking for us. And we don't let the white media say, oh, this is a black leader, you see. I'm going to end this by pointing out two bootlicks in particular, one you're aware of, another one who you need to be reminded of. It wouldn't be a true expose about white supremacy's use of bootlicks, tools, and agents without talking about Agent DuVernay. You see, when we forced Oprah to have to leave that Russell Simmons hit piece that she was going to be fronting for, that she was going to be the Negro front woman for, when we forced her off of that, she wasn't about to go ahead and say, these black media, they were lighting me up. They were just raking me over a cheese grater. I had, man, it was too much heat. I had to leave. She wasn't about to say who it really was. So instead, she tried to come up with this phony story that, well, I'd spoken to some people and, well, it was Ava DuVernay who told me that there's something questionable about. Now, when the hell has Agent DuVernay ever decided that there was a documentary slamming a black man that she didn't support? Did she say anything about leaving Neverland? Did she say anything about escaping R. Kelly or surviving R. Kelly, where the hell that pack of lies and misinformation was called? Did Agent DuVernay say anything about that? So what the hell makes you think that all of a sudden Agent DuVernay grew a spine and a backbone and, oh, Oprah, I don't know if you should be part of it? No. It's just like what Gayle Skank was trying. She's trying to use her own in-house approved of alibi. Well, don't blame me for the questions about Kobe Bryant. It was the network. It was the way that they edited it. Well, you were the one who asked it. But it was the edit, you see. You shouldn't even have asked. It was the edit. Blame the edit. Don't blame me. Blame the edit. And now Oprah, she's tried the same things. This is the tactic that they use, the exact same playbook. Well, it wasn't my idea to leave the documentary. Why, it was Agent DuVernay, yes, one approved of white media tool, giving an alibi to another approved of white media tool. And just in case you have any doubts about Agent DuVernay, even at this late date, just keep in mind that the Smithsonian, putting your tax dollars to work, they decided to do an exhibition about Oprah Winfrey. Yeah, you got the administrative arm of white supremacy trying to legitimize the primary black bootlick of the last 40 years. And who was in attendance? Dave Chappelle was there. I'm giving you the side eye, Dave. Agent DuVernay was there, no surprise. And they even pointed out that there were some cultural influencers and activists. Now, keep in mind, this article was written in 2018, and they're trying to call D. Ray McKesson a cultural influencer. Now, you can call him an activist, but activist for what, I don't know, because he's out there by himself. Cultural influencer? Who the hell follows this clown? But it just goes to show that the white media is constantly trying to credentialize and prop up their bootlicks, trying to figure out how to make these guys legit. We're going to try to bestow legitimacy on them. And if D. Ray McKesson is invited to some stupid little let's give some phony baloney praise to Oprah Winfrey event, well, that makes him legitimate. Why? He's in the room with a bunch of other propped up white supremacist tools calling themselves celebrities. That's what this is about. So you see how this closed loop of deceit and deception works. The white media is pulling the strings. And what's happening is we are cutting the puppet master's strings one by one. But the puppet master understands that while we are cutting the strings, we're holding on to the scissors. Because as soon as we're through cutting the strings of white supremacy's puppets, we're coming after the puppet master's hands next. So family, you need to make sure that you know who these white media executives are and know what their crimes are. And you make sure that whenever Gayle Skank or Orca or Joy Reid or any of these clowns, and notice, by the way, that Joy Reid's been real quiet the last few days. Yeah, we've trained that little heifer. She knows better than to say anything about this issue. She ain't said a dang word about it. Yeah, because she knows that everybody would pounce on her if she didn't. Well, we need to go ahead and let her know. We see you, Joy Reid. We see you trying to be silent over there. We see you figuring if you just don't say anything, nobody will notice you. Family, y'all need to be hitting Joy Reid up on Twitter and let her know, Joy, ain't you going to say anything about Gayle Skank being out of pocket? Better yet, aren't you going to say something about Snoop Dogg? Go ahead. We know that your bosses over there at MSNBC are bristling at this. Don't you have anything to say about either one of them? Nah, she ain't going to say that. She's had plenty to say before, but now she understands she better try to lay low best she can. Family, the job of calling out the white media and highlighting all of the sexual predation that comes from these white media executives, that is not merely the job of the black media. That is the job of us all. You are the force multiplier. What you hear from us, you're supposed to be taking out there because you're the ones who make it where they couldn't escape. It wasn't a matter of that Gayle Skank couldn't escape Professor Black Truth or couldn't escape Jason Black or couldn't escape Tariq or couldn't escape any of the other new voices of black media. The problem was that she couldn't escape you. If Snoop Dogg had said what he said and nobody else followed up on it, it wouldn't have mattered. The problem was it was loud enough for you to hear it and you acted on it. And you must continue to make it clear. Anytime somebody calls themselves trying to do the old, let's find a black man to bring in for some abuse, you make sure you start bringing up those white men's names and make sure that it's white men that they're scared to even talk about. Gayle Skank, when she got called out by Snoop, she wouldn't even mention Weinstein, and everybody noted that. You go to her Twitter feed, she's sitting here trying to talk around. Everybody said, yeah, we noticed you wouldn't even say Weinstein's name. And everyone, they're getting on code. They're learning it. It's like, yeah, that's the salient point. That's the important point. She's sitting here going, oh, I'm so scared of Snoop. Forget about Snoop. What about this Weinstein guy? Yeah, it's like you gave a response, but you didn't say Weinstein. You didn't even deny it. So it's a matter of, yeah, we can tell who pulls your strings. We know what it is. Those white media masters told her, you don't talk about us. Even the ones who are under indictment, you don't say a word about us. Now, if you want to keep that job. You see Jeff Fager and Chris Albrecht. You see, these guys are not above grabbing one of these females in the office and throwing them around. Chris Albrecht showed that. This is not network TV. This is the Sopranos we're talking about here. That's how these white men run things. So I guess it's more than just losing their job. I guess Gayle Skank is looking and going, well, I'm not sure if I can take a left hook from one of these dudes, so maybe I should stay quiet. But we need to be putting pressure on these white media bootlicks, on their black bootlicks. We need to be putting pressure on them. Joy Reid has to be called out for this. She needs to be told, hey, you need to speak on this. You need to go ahead and tell us what you think about this. You're not going to be allowed to sit this one out. So where do you fall? Are you on the side of Gayle Skank or are you on the side of the black public? Because see, right now, Joy Reid's trying to prop up Bernie the Bigot Sanders. She's trying to help him out and say, oh, he's got black support in South Carolina. No, he doesn't. But it's a matter of she's sitting here trying to be as non-controversial to the black community as she can be. And we're going to let her know cat's already out of the bag on that one. Anytime they call themselves trying to drag a black man, you start mentioning the names of those white men in power because that's a conversation they don't want to have. And when they refuse to respond, you keep hitting them on it. Hey, what about Les Moonves? That was your boss, wasn't he? And what about Julie Chen, Gayle? You ain't said nothing about Julie Chen. You haven't said anything about Molester Moonves' victims. And what about Charlie Rose? How can you be friends with this man after all the women that he violated? And hey, 60 Minutes never got around to that piece about Jeff Fager. Gee, I wonder why. That's what's going on. That's what the questions need to be asked. Put her on the hot seat. That's how you put them on the hot seat and keep them there. Because their silence will be deafening when everybody's hitting them about these white men in media and they don't even respond to it. That's how you put the heat on them. For over a decade, we've been telling you the perfect weapon to use. You want to know what the perfect knife is to slide in? We've been giving you the talking points. This is the reason why. These are the questions you should ask. Anytime they try to bring up a question about, well, Harvey Weinstein and Kevin Spacey. No, we ain't talking about charges. We're talking about who gets punished. This is about punishment. That's what I did with Mira Sorvino. I asked her, well, what about punishment? Let's talk about who's getting punished. And what does she do? She retreated to the old white talking point about, well, the system's not perfect. No, it is perfect. It's perfectly corrupt, perfectly racist. The foundation of message discipline is always making sure that the talking points are consistent and consistently driven. That's what the white media has done with us. Anytime that you got to talk about a David Bowie, you put a Bill Cosby in there. Yeah, well, if they bring up Bill Cosby, you bring up Molester Moonves and Matt Lauer, and you ask, when are they going to be charged? Hell, when are the police even going to investigate them? They call themselves bringing up Tavis Smiley. You bring up Charlie Rose. They bring up Kobe Bryant. Hell, you just go ham on the bastards then. You bring up Harvey Weinstein. You bring up Bill O'Reilly. You bring up Mike Oreskes. You bring up Donald Trump. You bring up Woody Allen. You bring them all up. You make it very clear that they're getting maximum pushback, and they're getting pushback from the soil. Because the truth of the matter is, when that soil starts to become unstable under their feet, when the ground starts shifting under you, you ain't got no choice but to move. Look, it was nice that Snoop Dogg got out there and he signal boosted what we've been saying all along, but we can't rest on that. The only thing that we can rest on happens to be the black grassroots. It started here, and the war is going to be won here. So go ahead and you put on your combat boots, put on your pack, make sure the helmet's on nice and tight, and get to marching. We're running the white supremacists out of town, starting with their black bootlick tools.